needs 55 billion to bail itself out after spending 200 and almost $300 million on a fanciful headquarters. So a lot of these things, I think that President Mohammed's call is not just on the state-owned enterprises, but all state institutions.
Then there's the issue of course, cocoa board has lost badly, and you can see that cocoa production keeps going down. Our environment is suffering, and that is also affecting the Ghanaian in a lot. But there's one other sector that seems to be growing, and if you listen to the finance minister, he said the growth that we saw in 2024 was gold-driven. The government's approach, the NDC government's approach, is to use the gold board to ensure that we get as much from gold as we deserve to have. So far, what do you make of the idea of a gold board being in place, how it's being implemented? What are your own thoughts on it? The right way to go?
I think it's absolutely the right way to go for many reasons. First and foremost, the growth that we have seen, with about 50% of it, a good chunk of it being accounted for by gold, of which that gold, about 50% is galamsey. Now, whilst we applaud the fact that it's making a contribution to the economy, we must also be looking at the cost of the galamsey. We welcome the healthy gold mining, the regulated gold mining, which is about 50%. And that's why the NDC wants to regulate the galamsey style, so that we are not destroying our forest for this growth. Because you see, if you make growth by destroying your forest and take the proceeds of that growth and find more money to add to it to go and clean up those forests, then did you go or did you come? And that's why the NDC's approach to regulating galamsey, making sure that small-scale miners are regulated and that their environmental impact is managed such that they can get licensed, and after they mine the place, they have to restore it and so on and so forth. What that will do is allow them to still mine in a safe, regulated manner, and at the same time allow us to be able to use the gold board to package their gold so that gold doesn't go to Togo or Mali, where they currently go and sell most of them. That gold is then bought by gold board, equivalent of cocoa board, which in turn, at 3 tons a week, we can then resell it out there and bring in the much needed foreign currency that will help also stabilize the city. So this is the way to go, where you regulate galamsey such that it is sustainable mining not in forest reserves, mining in places where we can reclaim the land so that the mining doesn't stop because it contributes to growth, but it's done in a very safe manner, like it's done in very, if you like, advanced countries. And then we are able to reap the benefits of gold. So I am fully on board with the whole idea of cocoa board, with the whole idea of regulating and controlling small-scale mining and making it the regulated and the legal approach so that we can benefit from it, and not the current approach where individuals, free for all, go into a forest reserve, destroy it, bring the gold out, and sell it, but then the country has to then clean up after them at huge cost.
Well, this is just by the way. Let's come to the budget, and I'm sure because you are a numbers person, you'll be looking through the budget. What do you think? Did your party get it right?
I think yes. We more than got it right. For the first time in a long time, I think this is what I would call a people's budget. And I applaud the finance minister, the Honorable Akufo-Addo, a one-time alumni of the UK and Ireland chapter. We are very proud of him, together with the others. But I think this was a master stroke. This is a budget that every advanced country will look at and even want to adopt. And I'll tell you why. For the first time, you see, we have been able to reduce nuisance taxes, eliminate nuisance taxes, and more, without compromising the integrity of the budget, without increasing the deficit by even 1 pesewa. How did he do it? He simply looked within, rationalized certain spending, and rediverted. And the interesting thing is that, look, in doing that, he actually even brought forward even more accountability. As he himself said, in 2015, the then government under President Mahama allocated 6% of revenue for tax refunds, which accrued close to 32 billion. Well, technically 26 billion over the last 8 years. That money was not used for the purpose it should have been used for. To begin with, about 43% of that money was used, meaning the other 57% was just sat there. And secondly, even that 42% that was used was not used to great effect. But the remaining 57% was used like somebody's piggy bank. Oporiata basically messed it up. And what he has smartly done is, we put 6% based on the records. Less than half of it, in fact, less than 3% is actually going into the purpose that we need it. So with the hindsight, we probably overprovided. So what are we going to do? We're going to reduce it to 4%, which is still more than what is needed. We need less than 3%. We'll keep 4%. And the other 2%, we have used it to what? 1, cancel e-levy. 2, cancel betting tax. Cancel emissions levy. Provide for our young girls so that there's no period poverty. Young girls can have sanitary pads. Provide for textbooks for primary education, and so many other social interventions. And all this has been done in one of the most smart and genius approaches without increasing our deficit by even a peso. So the IMF cannot cough. If you recall, the MPP were all about, let's see how you're going to do it. The IMF will not allow you to do it because the IMF will not allow you cancel taxes. Because when you cancel those taxes, it's going to create a hole. Where are you going to get money to cover that? They have been roundly silenced. So much so that they are even confused as to whether they started collecting betting tax or not, which, by the way, is true that they started collecting. So you will notice that the only tax increase was to the element of the sector that was growing, which is the mining industry, the gold guys. So that was the only place where the minister went ahead to what? Increase some taxes because they can afford. And that's about taxation. It's fair. Put it on the shoulders that are broad and can pay and reduce the impact on what? The poor, suffering consumers. And I think that, in fact, even on Galamsey, he has reduced the tax that was kept as withholding tax on those small-scale mining, their gold winnings. The impact of it is to ensure that these guys have more confidence to sell their gold to gold board. So you can see it's a very balanced budget. But if you ask me as a Ghanaian, I don't want to be paying e-levy. So next time I'm sending money to Ghana, I'm transferring money from my GCB online account to pay for something or to somebody's Momo, I won't be paying e-levy. And that's what it is about. This has the impact of reducing the cost of living. Look everywhere e-levy was and take that out. That's going to have an impact of a disinflationary impact because prices that were high because of e-levy will be coming down. Prices that were high because of emissions levy will be coming down. Of course, betting tax, people who win, who are lucky, will keep more of their proceeds. That 10% is gone, so they can plow that back. So if you look across board, what we did was very cautious. We didn't go splurging and increasing the deficit. We were rather physically prudent. We did not increase the deficit in any significant way. But if you notice the budget, we looked to the long-suffering people of Ghana and reduced the pain on them by cutting away taxes. And more are coming because the plan is to try and rationalize the VAT to bring it down from currently 22%, that's 21.9, to 20%. Another 2% cut of it, roughly, 2% off VAT. And if you work that out, that's going to be a significant amount, right? And so I think that this is in the right direction. This is a budget for the people. And at the same time, if you look through the budget, there's a heavy focus on infrastructure. So President Mahama is back to building ways, if I may put it that way. There's a heavy focus on infrastructure. We're quarantining all our APFA, if you like, the money portion of the oil money that used to come into our budget that we used to use straight for consumption is now all be ring-fenced to the tune of 13 billion for the big push. That is very laudable because our oil money should not be used for kenke and fish. Our oil money should be used to build infrastructure so that our children and their children's children, when they come, they can say, this is what we got from oil. If we say from the time we started oil came on stream to date, not a single block has been laid that we can say this is from our oil. And if we carry on that way, oil will finish and there's nothing left. But we have learned from our brothers in the Middle East. We are now diverting all our oil proceeds and taking it straight into building infrastructure that will boost the size of the economy, increase the size of the economy, and of course stimulate spending whilst increasing the capacity of expanding the economy. We will continue when it comes to the consumption side. We should continue the practice of taxation and spending, but using our oil money to invest for tomorrow. That is what any prudent economy should do. So that budget is a genius budget. It's a budget for the people, and the NPP knows it. That's why you see they are just tinkering here, alive here and there. We never implemented betting tax, and it turned out that actually they have collected the money. We never did this. They are now even confused. They don't know what they implemented and what they did not implement. The things they said they were going to cancel if you were to put them in power, now they are claiming they did not have them. But this tells you that budget is a master stroke. It is good for Ghana. It is good for every single Ghanaian, and it's good for our health. it puts us in a position to be able to generate more, to be able to start tackling our debt. And by God, if this budget is not the budget for Ghana, I don't know what other budget will be good for us at this point in time in our current predicament.
What was expected was a balancing act. And how do you justify from looking at the budget that balancing act has been achieved? Because you're thinking about paying for something like free SHS, paying for the promises that were made, continuing the projects of the last administration, most of the development projects, and then paying off the debts. Because now you don't have their freedom of having to decide when to pay which debt. You have to pay.
Yeah.
And then also ensuring that as much as possible you live within your means to help the economy recover. How do you convince someone that balancing job was done well?
Look, two things. First and foremost, the evidence is there. No one who was due to be paid when the NDC came to power has not been paid. If you recall, the Balancing Act has been done in so gingerly a manner, so delicate a manner, and yet so prudent, such that we have not impaired our capacity to repay our debt. That's number one. And so you notice one of the things we were able to do, to start off, is to revive the sinking fund and put in 15 billion. A large portion of it, about 9 billion of which is earmarked for debt payment within the next couple of months, sometime in July, August. So we are prudently even planning for when debts will become due for payment. And that is what we call a very good way of doing things. At the same time, we came in and we realized we can't just go spending. We promised people a lot. And they said, oh, King, promise, where will you get the money? So we did not go increasing taxation to pay for our promises. No. We looked within the budget and we cut waste. We looked within the budget and we found ways of means of reclassifying things to be able to pay for it. A classic maneuver, for example, is being able to reconfirm or reclassify all the money coming from oil that usually goes into budget for consumption and put it for infrastructure, our big push program. They were asking us where will we get money for that we have been able to tell them. Another example is delivering tax cuts without increasing taxes, or delivering tax cuts without compromising on basic spending. So this is the situation, and this is a budget that will be studied for generations to come. Typically, when you are increasing social spending, like investing in schools, investing in hospitals, and you can see that we have allocated the largest ever single allocation to free SHS. The largest ever single allocation to free SHS in any budget. And us, President Mahama promised he was not going to scrap free SHS, he was going to make it viable. He has not only done that, but he has also uncapped the GET fund so that there is an extra 4.5 billion dedicated funding from GET fund that will be tailored specifically for free SHS. So going forward, we'll no longer wake up and say, where are we going to get money for free SHS? Because anytime you go and buy anything and they charge you GET fund as part of budget, it is funding free SHS. Pure and simple. This is genius. This is money that was previously capped and diverted by Opuriata into fanciful projects that we don't know about. But what has been done by Akufo-Addo and President Mahama is to take that and allocate it. So free SHS is here to stay and now has a sustainable funding now and forever. Now, we have done that. So that's social spending. We have made free no free stress first year program. So you go in first year university, you no stress about your fees. All people with disabilities, free tertiary education. So if you are a person with disability, now it's from cradle, straight from kindergarten to university, free. Right? We are still investing. We have unlocked money, about 9 billion for the national health insurance, so that we can keep paying for our people to be treated. We have launched Mahama Cares. Now, typically, when you do all this, 9 billion for national investment, 3.5 billion budget allocation for SPSHS, another 4.5 billion from the GET fund, taking the Dachi bond off the shoulders of the GET fund so that it is free to continue to build the infrastructure that is needed to abolish the traffic light system. That's where that 4.5 billion that has been capped for GET fund will also help to do. You know, free sanitary pads for our schools for over 400 million. Textbooks for primary schools, another 500 million for them. All these heavy social spending, typically anywhere in the world you go, it is accompanied immediately by tax rises. And typically people will understand. This is the first time, and by God, I have studied budgets as part of my public financial management studies in my advanced studies. Almost every budget go through the history of Ghana, you will not find any budget where we have cut crucial taxes like this and are still thinking of cutting some more, like your, what do you call it, the taxes that are embedded in VAT, and at the same time increase social spending in education, in health, in infrastructure, all 13 billion for infrastructure. This is a masterstroke. What it tells us is that the previous managers of the economy were terrible at managing the resource envelope we had. All these resources, this is what Akufo-Addo is telling us, all these resources were in the system. And yet the previous government continued to levy bad taxes on us and were wasting them and destroying the country. He has come around, repurposed all these resources to the profitable sectors of our economy, to the social sectors of the economy that will protect our vulnerable and make sure we are growing for tomorrow in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of health, in fact, I will say without, not only is it without increasing taxes, actually it is with what? Reducing taxes. Who does that? Reduce taxes and increase spending. What does that mean? We looked within. We cut off a lot of fat, dead fat, and make sure that the government is clean, is lean, and is very effective. This is the budget model that we need, not just for Ghana, but fellow Africans should also be what? Emulating. And so this is a budget, a genius of a budget. Typically, the lazy approach is tax them and spend more. So if you want free education, we increase taxes. If you want this, we increase this. No, we've said you are getting dedicated funding for free education. But guess what? Not only will you not get taxed more, we're also reducing your taxes. You are getting more money for your health, NHIS, but we're also what? Reducing taxes. You are getting more investment. This big push program. But guess what? You are getting what? Lower taxes. This is the classic. Look with it. And we're not even asking for aid. And at the same time, we're not defaulting our debts. Not only have we paid the first tranche of debt, the domestic debt exchange program, we fully paid it. And this is a debt, by the way, a debt of 6 billion, right? That is the equivalent of about $600 million that was required to pay this debt. How much did the MPP leave behind for it? $64,000. My brother, $64,000. Meanwhile, they inherited $490 million in that same account when they took over in 2017, and they left $64,000. And within the space of a few weeks, we were able to quickly mobilize and raise $600 million from within, from our internal resources, so not from borrowing or anywhere, to be able to pay these guys. And we have done all this while still maintaining a heavy T-bills debt that these guys have. In fact, they have borrowed heavily on the treasury bills because, they were kicked out of the capital markets, so they couldn't go for their Euro bonds that they were using for KK and fish. So badly that they have to fall back heavily on treasury bills. And the amount of treasury bills, over $106 billion series of treasury bills, so much so that every single week, as we speak today, we will be collecting about $6.5 billion just to roll it over. And this government has started not just settling it, but also reducing it. In other words, we're reducing the burden on the treasury bills that we're taking. And that's why you see the treasury bills have collapsed. The interest on treasury bills have collapsed from 30% down to roughly now about 17-19%, depending on which one you look at. What it is saying is that we are prudently rolling over while paying some off. And because we are reducing government demand for treasury bills, when demand comes down and supply is still up there because of the confidence, because we are paying our debts, a lot more people are bringing more money to us. So, for example, in the first week when we went to the market for treasury bills, we wanted only about 6 million. Ghanaians brought the money from under their pillows and their beds and mattresses and gave us 20 billion. If it was Oforiatta, he would have taken the full 20 billion and chopped it. But we said no. We only took the 6.5 billion we needed to roll over the old one. And roll over simply means this week 6.5 billion worth of treasury bills is available, is ready to be settled. Those who paid it want their money. So we collect 6.5 new treasury bills and used to pay the old one. And what we have done is we did not take the 20 billion. We rejected a large part and took only 6.5. The following week, we asked for 6.5 again. They brought us 18 billion. We rejected the remaining 12 and took 6.5 billion. This is telling you that with more supply in and government demanding low, you see that the interest rate is coming down. What it is doing is it's also encouraging the extra liquidity in the system to be diverted to businesses, so the government is not crowding them out like the previous government was doing. So you can see we are paying our treasury bill debts and reducing it in record time reducing interest rate from about 30 to 17%. When has this ever happened in Ghana? Never. On the T-bills. We have made provision for paying our GDEP. We paid them once, and we have already even put in money. There's 9 billion sitting in that account now for the payment that is due in July. We are in March. We have already looked ahead and paid. That's what we call prudent debt management, planning for it. And we've done all this while cutting taxes and at the same time increasing infrastructure spending, increasing social spending in education, in health, in social poverty, and even allocating money for a bank that will help to unlock the capacities and talents of our women folk. This is a budget that the NPP in a million years would never be able to produce. This is a budget that is testament to the level of managerial talent, not just within the NDC, but also within Ghana. This budget didn't need to be dictated to us by IMF. I'm sure if IMF comes, they'll be clapping for us over the moon over this intelligent way of prudently managing our economy for the betterment of Ghanaians.
Of course, a few things. One, for you in the diaspora, yes, it is cheaper now to send money to your family and also maybe do other transactions in Ghana if you need to. If you're doing a project, it becomes cheaper because of the removal of the e-levy. There's a promise of dealing with VAT, which you expect some work to be done on by April. But there's also the issue of the fact that when you're sending anything to Ghana, the cost at the ports is something that most persons abroad, some of whom are your members, continue to complain about. Do you think there's enough in this budget to convince people that perhaps sending through things through the port, doing business through the ports will become cheaper than it was?
Yes, I think the signals in the budget are that those special import levies, they are being looked at. In fact, when I looked at the other paper from yesterday, there is provision in it for that. Now, I want to say to Ghanaians, look, in the first place, we can't do everything in one go. The low-hanging fruits have been tipped off. Things like VAT, things like the special import levy and those other stuff that now need to. And by the way, by removing the emissions levy, removing the COVID levy, if you were to, the last time I was in Ghana in May, I had the displeasure of buying a motorbike for one of my relations. When I looked in the charges that were there, you had e-levy, the import levy, and most of the other nuisance levies that have now been taken off. Emissions levy, a COVID-19 levy, VAT on COVID-19 levy, and VAT on all these levies. By removing emissions levy, removing the COVID-19 levy, and so on and so forth, straight away, it will bring down the import levy, if that makes sense. It will bring down the cost of imports. But the government has also promised in this budget that they are going to look into how to rationalize it so that we are able to set the levy such that they encourage us to import what we need to import for the purpose of growing our economy, whilst at the same time making sure we are not importing any rubbish that's going to destroy the local production capacity. So I am confident, based on what I've seen in this budget, the budget is good for that. But again, we have to be patient. The quick ones have been ticked off. The others are being worked on. And I know that in the next couple of months, that will also be addressed.
And then there's the New Patriotic Party. They say that your budget actually betrays the suggestion that they have not managed the economy well. That if you look at the outcomes from the previous year, in fact, the last quarter, as put out by the finance minister, their growth rate alone says that they have done well. They haven't done so badly. Do you agree?
Oh, no. And there are reasons for it. First and foremost, yes. The overall growth rate for 2024 was at 5.7 when the IMF budgeted 3.1. Why? Because the IMF didn't anticipate that the NPP will allow Galamsey to go on steroids at so fast a rate and not only destroy the environment, of course, but increase our growth. That is not sustainable growth. IMF did not budget on that. Now, if you look at the growth, a large portion of it was from mining and quarrying. And that large portion, in part, was accounted for by this Galamsey thing. Now, if you look at the fourth quarter, when, because of election activity, the government was forced to start reining in on Galamsey activities, the fourth quarter GDP came down sharply to about 3.7%. That tells you that if anti-Galamsey activities were sustained continuously, then we are going to lead to a situation where if that had actually been started earlier in the year, they wouldn't have hit the 5.7. The other interesting thing here is this. Construction is another area that contributed heavily to the growth. Now, when you look at the numbers, the growth in construction was not because of the overall growth in the quantum or quantity of construction activities. No, it was purely down to price inflation. So basically, if what you were looking at was that if the builders built 3 houses in 2023, which were valued at, say, 3 cedis, because each house was 1 cedi, in 2024, they built the same 3 houses. But this time round, because of inflation going up, right, 27% and 23%, that's over 50% in those 2 years, the cost of those houses has now increased from 1 cedi to 2 cedi. So suddenly the value of construction has moved from 3 cedi in 2023 to 6 cedi in 2024, not because you have increased the quantity, but because the price has gone up. Not because you've increased the number of people employed there, but because the price has gone up. And that explains why this growth is not accompanied by a corresponding increase in employment. So if you look at those two angles, they are not sustainable. Now, let's put that growth aside. What else did they get? They were supposed to hit a surplus. They were supposed to get a surplus of an overall balance of about 0.5% of GDP. That is supposed to be a surplus. They ended up making a deficit of about over 3.7%. So they moved from an expected profit to a massive loss if you were to look at the country as a profit and loss entity. Now, how is that spectacular performance? They said, okay, they left reserves of about 8 billion. That can account for about 3.5 months worth of imports. In 2016, we left them the same equivalent 3.5 billion. So effectively, they took and gave back to us exactly what we had given to them. So there's no net increase. But what you need to look at is this. What we handed over to them in 2017, we were still paying our debts. What they have given to us, this growth, is because they stopped paying their debts. Even this deficit that we have is because they stopped paying their debts. We now have debt to GDP ratio down to somewhere about 68%. We gave it to them at 52%. But it is down to 58% because they have stopped paying their debts. And they have cut off 37% of the debt off of it. My brother, when we were at 100%, we gave you 52% debt to GDP. You took the debt and shaved 37% of it. So you're only holding 63% of the debt and you're at 68% GDP. So what do you think would have happened if they didn't get the 37% haircut? If that haircut hadn't happened, they would probably have had the over 104% debt to GDP that we had just a few years ago. They would probably have had, the economy would have tanked. There would have been no economy. So when they start boasting about their performance, it is because they could not pay their debts and they stopped paying their debts. Since we came in, we have started paying our debts and things are going well. And we have not had to increase any taxes to pay those debts. And I'm sure IMF will not respect the economic managers of this country because we are not engaging in the lazy borrow and share. Now, one thing I want them to also understand is this. If they tell us that they left us a spectacular economy and what we have done is testament to that spectacularness, I want to remind them, this tax refund account that Uporiata was using as his personal shopping account on tech projects and paying contractors that he loved and wanted to. Why did they know? Look, they collected 26 billion from that. They only needed 6 billion from what? From e-levy. That's what they themselves said, even though they only collected 1.7 billion. My brother, a listening government, a caring government that has 26 billion sitting aside will not go and tax the people and piss them off with e-levy for 1.7 billion, with betting tax for only 170 million, with emissions levy for just a few hundred millions. If you add e-levy, add emissions levy, add betting tax, and add all those nuisance taxes they placed on us, it is less, my brother, quote me here, it is less than 10% of that tax refund account proceeds that they were collecting. What did they prefer to do with the tax refund account? They used it to pay off their cronies. They used it for projects that were non-seller, that did not make a benefit to the country, and rather went taxing Ghanaians. This is the wicked record of the MPP. And Ghanaians should be angry with them. MPP themselves, looking at themselves in the mirror, should ask themselves, how does this make sense? that I am a man of the house. I have got 100,000 cedis sitting in the bank account. My wife comes to me for chop money, just 5,000 Ghana to go and do the monthly shopping. And I tell my wife, I don't have money. So let's go and borrow money from our children. The little savings our children have, we take that money to go and shop for the house. And I'm keeping that 100,000 and using it for my side checks and using it for KK and Kelewele outside the house. What kind of responsible father am I? This is what the MPP did to Ghana. And they should be ashamed of themselves. They should keep quiet, go into a corner and reflect on how they should do penance. And Ghanaians should punish this MPP for the next 5 terms. They should not be allowed anywhere near our economic management tables.
Well, it seems we have to leave it here. And thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you. And a good day to all of you.
You too. You too. Mr. CONRAD DUMBAH is Chairman, NDC UK Ireland chapter. Join us this morning to conclude the Gold Morning conversation.